The following 3 videos that we're shooting are designed to leave you as the real estate professional with a much clearer understanding about how appraisers operate and what they can do and not do with green buildings, and how hopefully that can change. The first video is going to deal specifically with how an appraiser thinks and why data and trends are important. The second video is going to deal with the listing agreement and why it is important to an appraiser. And the third video session is going to deal with frequently asked questions. As a real estate professional, you should be interested in green building for a number of reasons, but specifically 2. Will these green features give your client a higher sales price? And will green features help the home to sell faster and be more appealing? The short answer to those 2 questions is yes, maybe, and no. The yes comes from, as you know, in the Pacific Northwest, we have been conducting studies analyzing the regional multiple listing service of Oregon and the Northwest multiple listing service in Washington. Those studies have revealed one simple fact: green homes are selling for more per square foot and they are taking less time on market. The maybe comes from the fact that just because a buyer is willing to spend more money on a home than the market can bear does not necessarily mean that that home is worth what the buyer is willing to pay. Let me put this a different way. If you have a client and they are selling a home and they have spent $20,000 on a solar photovoltaic array, that does not necessarily mean that you can add $20,000 onto the sales price to cover what the client spent on the solar array. From an appraisal perspective, that solar array is worth something more, but it is not worth what somebody spent. And here has been a big confusion, particularly with the green building movement, that the cost of a green feature equals its value. Not. The no is a bit more complicated and ultimately suggests that we may in the future have to value things differently. Specific green features such as those that deal with site and water, particularly relating to protection of soil and green vegetation, materials that are renewable or reused, items such as bamboo, that is a fast-growing, easily replaced material. These are the items that say green in your marketing, but actually where an appraiser is struggling and in fact in many instances cannot even give a value to. So how does an appraiser think? An appraiser has to, by law, follow the practices under the Uniform Standard Professional Appraisal Practices, commonly known as USPAP in the industry. The appraiser can only now talk value with its client, and its client has typically now changed from a mortgage company to a management company that has been hired as the interim body to ensure that there is a firewall between the lender or the loan officer and the appraiser, so there can be no undue influence of that value. Now, there's been confusion in the industry about this, particularly with real estate professionals, many who I've heard say, I now can't talk to the appraiser about anything. Not true. The rule specifically prohibits talking about value, but you must and indeed should talk to your appraiser and keep them fully informed on all of the amenities of a home. This becomes critical when valuing green homes, because if an appraiser is not made aware of green features, they will not necessarily know that this is a green home because we've already learned green homes don't look different to regular homes. So if they don't know that this is a green home with particular energy efficient or water saving features, they will not know to take the time and make those adjustments. One thing to understand is that appraisers base their value on current market conditions. So what does this actually mean? Well, if you've got a subject property, the appraiser has to find their comparables a minimum of 3 and preferred 5 within 1 mile radius of the property. In addition to that, the sales have to have fallen within the last 6 months. And in today's market in 2010, with property prices still tumbling, it's suggested strongly that their subject properties are actually within 3 months. This ties the hands hugely of appraisers, just so you understand this. 2 final things to understand about appraisers in how they think is that at the end of the day, an appraisal is an opinion of value for which the appraiser is liable. Pause for thought there. They are liable for their opinion. The final and perhaps the most important to understand for appraisers is that appraisers are market responsive, not market makers. I'm going to say that again. Appraisers are market responsive, not market makers. We have all assumed in the green building movement that appraisers are making the value. No, they're not. They're simply responding to value. So here comes back to the relevancy of collecting data. Because if we can demonstrate that there is a trend, in other words, that consumers are paying more for green homes, then the appraiser has to respond to that. And even though they're not required to make adjustments, nevertheless, any appraiser will start to recognize that if there's a strong enough market, they have to respond to it.